It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Ann Ganguzza.
Hey everyone, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Ann Ganguzza, with very extra special guest and colleague and friend, Miss Kesha Monk. Kesha.
Hello, how you doing, baby girl?
I am doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I feel good. I really, really do. It's a new year. I feel fresh and flavorful.
Oh, fresh and flavorful. I love that. Speaking of fresh and flavorful, I need to actually go on a diet. I've been needing to go on a diet since this whole pandemic thing because my husband's man cave is the kitchen. So he has been, having a whole lot of fun in the kitchen. So, but he can cook healthy just as well as he can cook, decadent things that probably I shouldn't have as much of. But he's so darn good.
I'm
cooking.
Sure.
But
I'm sure. What a blessing. A
right?
man who cooks. What's that?
I know. Hey, speaking of health, Kesha, you and I have been through a few trials and tribulations together in regards to health. And I think in talking about it with you in the past, it has definitely affected our outlook on life and our outlook on our businesses. And I thought maybe it would be a good time to talk about those trials and tribulations because it's crazy out there right now, and people are, thankfully I'm healthy. Thankfully you're healthy right now, but there are some people who aren't, and I think that there's a whole mental game there that can maybe, I don't know, we can strike some positivity in people if they're not healthy and how they might be able to continue on with their businesses, right. Or evolve their businesses. You had talked to me about, we're kind of soul sisters in the fact that we both survived cancer. You survived cancer multiple times.
A couple of times.
Yeah.
3 times.
And I think, let's talk about what did that do for you in regards to your voiceover career or in life, of course? That's like the bigger question, right? What did that do for you in regards to being successful and wanting to make things, joyful and just work for you?
Wow. So check it out. I actually, I was a radio personality before I made the transition to voiceover, right? And during my downtime, I admitted, and again, I've 20 years in radio, and I've worked in the biggest markets. I've had an incredible career, and cancer kind of put me on my back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so once I accepted the fact that I would not be able to go into the radio station, doing chemo and stuff took up all of my time. I used to do chemo like 12 hours at I like to call it the Cancer Correctional Facility,
Good name for it.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
I used to do like 12 hours of cancer in the chemo center. And then I would literally have to go home with a pump as the chemo continuously flowed through my veins for an additional 3 days. And then, the nurse would have to come down and take the, needles out, so forth and so on. So I could not go in and out of the radio station. I don't do well sitting still. Right. So even though I wasn't feeling my best,
right.
And then
you're still active. Wow. Your brain is active.
Exactly. And then I'm kind of in love with touching people with my voice. So I was just trying to figure out what can I do, from home, where I can still utilize my voice. And so that's how I got into voiceover. Right. Mm-hmm. It was really, really crazy. I entered a contest where $100,000 contract was up for grabs, and the script that I had to read in order to get the gig was a cancer script, which was crazy to me. It is, and it happened several years ago, and I'm still like, really? Mm-hmm. I didn't get that gig, but they signed me anyway, and that's kind of like how I got into voiceover. And I was incredibly sick for, I would say, the first year or two, as I was kind of doing this. And even though I was a radio personality, making that transition to voiceover isn't necessarily easy.
Oh, gosh, no.
It totally isn't. It's voice acting.
Yeah. And I say that having worked with many people who were transitioning from radio into voiceover and working with them as students. And so I understand the transition and how difficult that is. And I'll tell you what, when I was sick and recovering, I'll never forget, like you're saying, you like to be active. And so even though you weren't feeling well, it's not like you can just be mindless and sit there and you know, you need to have something to occupy your mind, to take your mind off of either the pain or whatever it is that you're, you know, the boredom. And so I just remember when I got into the booth really as quick as I possibly could. And it was such a wonderful, like, just to step in the booth and to have something to just, you know, audition, you know, whatever. That was great to have those things to do to keep my mind off of other things like maybe my pain.
It was totally therapeutic for me. And I really, to be honest with you, I felt like I was kind of doing a lot of on-the-job training because, again, I knew how to use my voice, but voice acting is like a different animal. But I'm home, so I can access YouTube and I can, you know, just turn on the television and just listen and learn and be inspired by others who were kind of like doing doing their thing. And so I just kind of was good at it. And I just got better and better, and I have received more and more bookings. And again, while I'm receiving these bookings, I'm still reaching out to, you know, folks like Randy Thomas. God, I love her. And I'm starting to feel a little bit better as I'm healing. You know, I'm allowed to, that's where I met you. I figured I'd get my stuff together and, take advantage of some of these, VO Mastery and some of these conferences and rubbing elbows with people who are in it and doing it. And I've just been on a roll, girl. I really, really have.
I'll tell you what, I think that, you know, going through that, as horrible as it is to be sick or chronically sick or chronically ill, it also really puts things into perspective. And I remember myself thinking, wow, I can get out of my own way now, because nothing really compares to, like, if you can get through that, then really what's holding you back behind the mic? What is holding you back from being your best or letting go or being you, which I think is probably one of the hardest things for voice actors if they're not used to being themselves and just bringing themselves to the party and being authentic. I think, you know, it's not a performance behind the mic. I really think that was the one thing that really got me out of my own way. And I thought, gosh, why am I so, you know, what am I holding myself back for? Why am I so stiff behind the mic? Or, you know, just be me, because I remember at the depths of, you know, there's a lot of mental things that happen when you're sick like that. Fear being the biggest one of them. But I do remember thinking to myself, I've got nothing right now, right? But, you know, fear in my head. And so what can I do to get over that? And really, you know, and I've mentioned this before on a podcast, the only thing I really could do was just love people and just love life and be grateful. And once I could finally just breathe and think that way, I was able to really make some big progress in my own performance and in my own business in succeeding.
Absolutely. And then bigger than that, Anne, I honestly believe that getting into the business of voiceover really was a part of my healing. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
It helped me heal. And that's one thing that, you know, they kind of tell you as you're going through cancer. And you know, you got to remember, you're not always feeling your best. But what the doctors were telling me is that, you know, you got to kind of find something that brings you joy, even if it's reading, singing, taking a walk. You know, it's not a good thing to wallow in your sorrow.
Oh, absolutely.
But what I learned is cancer is not a death sentence. So once just like you said, once I got that out of my head, I learned to embrace voiceover more and more. And I truly, you know, find that voiceover was an intricate part of me healing. And then not only that, I have been giving, like, you're actually helping contribute to that continuous healing, because even though I am cancer-free, I still go through a lot of things mentally. I'm not as strong as people think, especially with 3 reoccurrences. I'm always thinking, oh my God, is the cancer going to come back? If I get a little bump on my skin, I'm like, oh my God, so that's what I'm
pain.
constantly
Oh my God,
going
it's
through.
a tumor.
Yes.
That's, like, I totally understand that. And I think that's the biggest game of this. It's not the physical part of the disease, because I believe with the physical part of the disease, I had wonderful doctors and they saved my life, and we've got treatments. But I'll tell you what, for the mental aspect of it, and I think conquering fear of it coming back. And this doesn't have to be, for our listeners, it's just any type of illness, I think, that might bring fear, like this pandemic, right, can bring fear, and people react to it in so many different ways. And I think for me, it's helped, having cancer helped me to deal with certain aspects of this pandemic better, because I was like, okay, I can hunker down and I can just do the things that bring me joy, because in the past that has helped me to move forward and not be, it definitely helped to be able to just dive into voiceover or whatever it is, figure out what it is that brings you joy, to kind of be able to move forward.
Yes, and the entire science of voiceover fascinated me. So, I would do a television spot and, hear it on, see it on television, and that would just propel me like, oh my gosh, and I mean this in a humble way, but I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounded so good. I can't wait to get to the next. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just, and I'm not necessarily in love with the sound of my voice, but I'm fascinated with the way I can take some words on a paper and connect with audiences through what I'm saying. Everything is so emotional to me. So that's a lot of fun, and it keeps me going today.
That's such a great point. Everything is so emotional. And I totally think that that's a great place to kind of, as an artist, right? As an artist, to creatively grow with that thought that it's driven by emotion. And I'm always, trying to tell people, if they're going to give a different read, find a different emotion. Let's bring that to the acting, because when you can bring the emotion, whatever that emotion is, to the read, you then bring a piece of you to that read. And it makes it easier. You're not so concerned about, well, what is it that I'm sounding like, or what do I think they want me to sound like? It's really about the emotion and the connection. And that is just such a wonderful, I think, challenge for every piece of copy that I see. It's like, oh, it's like a little game. And it's like every audition that comes was like, oh, it's like a little, what's today's game? What are today's game questions going to be? And then it would be, okay, how do I interpret this copy? How do I bring that to life? And that really became something that I know for myself, that if my brain is not active every single second, that's really what brings me joy and really helps me to grow as a person and as an artist.
So to me, voiceover is a complete science. So even when, and again, I'm emotional, extremely emotional, but whenever I, receive a gig or a booking that I may not necessarily be familiar with the product, I research this stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
So if it's, I don't know, if it's a commercial about, airbags, I don't know. I may not necessarily be, well versed in
an airbag
airbags.
expert.
Yeah, I'm not an airbagologist.
Expert.
You know what I mean?
Airbagologist.
I'm totally not. But because I'm fascinated with connecting people, I will, I'll get on YouTube and I'll just surf an hour or two about airbags. And here's the emotional connection. This is how I view something as simple as airbags. Airbags save lives. You know what I'm saying? And awareness of that can save a life. Like, I'm saying to myself, this commercial that I'm voicing could potentially save a life. So that's where I don't know, I was just going to say, that's where I reel in the emotion. And again, it may not be some overly dramatic thing, but if I'm truly understanding what I am voicing, oh man, it just propels me into like a different universe. I can get excited about airbags.
and that's awesome. And also, like, if it's an e-learning module, right? You're teaching, you're reaching people, and that's when I'm behind the mic doing an e-learning module. As boring as that may sound to maybe some people, it isn't, because I'm a teacher. I am connecting with my students,
yes,
and I'm going to be a part of their lives and their journey in learning, and that to me is what I emotionally, and it's such an amazing thing what I emotionally bring to the read, because that is so. That's what the connection is.
It is fulfilling.
And that's what people respond to. And so
I really feel like it's my life work. And again, to the listening audience, I hope you don't think that I'm being over dramatic, but this is how much I love voiceover. I love touching people with my voice. And I think I've done this for a really long time. As we enter a new year, I've been doing a lot of soul searching and just looking over my life, right? And again, I turned 50 last year, so I'm just doing all of this. It's like the years in review. Like when I was a kid, I used to get in so much trouble because I used to call those party lines. I don't know if you remember I think they were like 976 numbers or the 1-900 numbers that cost like $1.99 per minute.
A minute.
Oh my gosh, my mother could have murdered me for doing that. But I think as a child, I was just always fascinated with the voice. And I used to like take greeting cards, right? And I used to read them to the people on the party. This is a true story. I used to read them to the people on the party line. Greeting cards like, happy birthday to you. I hope, and people have always been like, oh, wow, this is what I used to do. You can read a greeting card. Right.
So interestingly enough, when I was in college, I used to do back in the day. I call my very first voiceover, but I used to have the tape cassette players. If you remember, the Panasonic push play and record at the same time. And I used to record. For the college for the blind and dyslexic. So I would record like physics books and calculus books, and I would have to. I can't even tell you. I'd have to like verbally sound out the problems at the end of the book, and I have to like rewind if I made a mistake and record over it. So that was my rudimentary entrance into voiceover.
Right, and I'm not even sure if you did that like if you volunteered to do that like intentionally. Like, again, there's got to be a certain fascination that you have with being able to just read and to express. And girl,
and I'll tell you, I think that the challenges, that the health challenges that we've encountered, and I think anyone who's encountered something that probably questions your mortality, or even if it doesn't question your mortality, but you're afraid that it might, right? Being this pandemic, how do we respond to it? And so for those bosses out there listening, if you can, no matter how you're feeling about the pandemic, some people feel differently. If they're scared, they're not scared, that it's a thing, it's not a thing. Right. Whatever, maybe you have a chronic illness, whatever it is that you're feeling, if it's based in fear, which, for me, the health scare was based in fear. If you can just figure out what it is about voiceover that brings you the joy, and what it is that can, help you to bring joy to others, to bring joy to yourself, to grow your business. Take that and really work with it. And use it for that, not just because, I have a voiceover job and I need to get it done and get paid, but use it to grow internally, externally, in any way that you possibly can, and to bring love. I think that for me, it was a thing where when I got to the point where I was scared and I thought I could die from this, and what do I have left? Like the material things didn't matter. Like I had my husband, I had my family, I had people who loved me and cared about me. And then I thought, well, gosh, that's what I have.
Exactly.
And that's what I can bring to, for the rest of my life, that's what I can bring. and that translates into connecting and bringing and showing and being love using my voice.
Absolutely. And we are so here. I totally get it. And this is why I love you so much. This connectability is just really, really amazing. Yes.
Well, bosses out there, I hope that we've maybe helped you in some small way to have maybe a different perspective on your voiceover career and your health. It is, for me, it is what it is. And I think I remember back in the day, I was like, well, I was in denial. I was like, no, I'm healthy. This is not, I do not, it's like when you said, once I finally accepted, I was like, well, all right, I guess I have to deal with this now.
So can I just say something really, really quick? Because you just made me remember something. And it's a story that I used to tell when I was on the radio. I used to tell my listeners all the time. So, you have a car, right? And sometimes the engine light might pop on. That's an indication that something's wrong. Like, your body will tell you when something is wrong.
Yeah.
And, I was really busy during the political season, and my voice kind of felt funny. My throat kind of felt tight. I did not wait. And I think cancer told me that you have to pay attention to the warning signs. So for the first time, I found like a vocal doctor. I didn't even know they existed. And, it was kind of fascinating because I actually got to see my vocal cords, so forth and so on. But what I'm trying to say is pay attention to your body. And especially if you are a VO boss, pay attention to
Yes.
like if your voice is feeling kind of funny. Don't just swallow Vicks and pay attention. Pay attention. This is your gift. If it was a car, you wouldn't ignore that engine light or the oil light.
And it's not even. Exactly. And it's not even just if your voice, if your throat sounds, if your body, like your body is the extension of your voice, really. So if anything doesn't feel right, don't wait.
Don't
Great
ignore
advice,
it. Don't
Kesha.
ignore it.
Don't ignore it.
Yep.
Go get it checked out. And to all of you bosses, we wish you the very best health. Lots of love and wonderful things that will be happening in this new year. And I would like to give a great big shout out to, and a lot of love to our sponsor, IPDTL. You too can connect, like Kesha and I, like a boss, and find out more at IPDTL.com. You guys have a great week. We love you, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguzza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.